I want to thank everyone again for coming this morning and also my friends and colleagues, Linda, Irene, Kathy, and Reverend Marianne, for your help with this morning's service. The title of my talk is Do You Hear What I Hear? And it's always interesting to me how spirit works. I had chosen this song and the basic theme for my talk today before I saw news reports that toward the end of the holiday season, actually on the winter solstice, the planets Jupiter and Saturn are going to appear to be in such close alignment from our vantage point here on Earth that they will create an effect that is called a double planet effect or a Christmas star. The last time that these two planets moved this close together, or what appears to be this close together from where we're standing, was in 1623, but they were so close to the sun that people on Earth could not see it. And so the last time that this alignment or this conjunction, which is what astronomers call it, happened and was visible to people standing here on Earth was in the Middle Ages in 1226. As I mentioned, many are calling this natural astronomical event the appearance of a Christmas star. And in a year that has been, by all accounts, a very difficult one for the world, and certainly many of us, it's some comfort to see a rare and unusual celestial event during a holiday season. And the event provides a perfect backdrop in a holiday season where so many traditions celebrate this return of the light, a return to a time of light. Certainly today, December 6th, 2020, is the second Sunday in Advent on the Christian calendar. This Friday at sundown, Hanukkah begins. There are celebrations like the soil solstice ceremony this month, a Hopi, major Hopi ceremony, performed to send prayers to the sun and to spirit beings for rain and sunshine in the coming planting season. And of course, Persians across the world celebrate Shab e Yalda to honor the victory of Mithra, the sun god, over darkness. This celestial event, this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, it reminds me of the many times throughout my life when I have had seemingly random things come into my experience that stop me in my tracks and remind me that everything was going to be okay. I often quote a guru, Sri Sri Anandamurti, who teaches his students that we are never alone or helpless, that the force that guides the stars guides us too. And that truth has come to me many times, often when I'm at my lowest points. When we're in the middle of something, when we're feeling desperate, whether it's financially desperate, maybe it's a scare around our health or the health of someone we love, maybe we're just emotionally or mentally overwrought, it can be really hard to remember and focus on saying the right affirmations or putting words into some kind of a coherent prayer or treatment and help ourselves get calm. Sometimes we're so overwrought that we struggle to find the right words or to even get into the right state of mind. And this is why developing a regular spiritual practice is recommended by those much wiser than we are. When we've developed our spiritual practice and some stressful situation or circumstance hits us, we don't have to think about what to do or what to say. The habit that we've honed kicks in, and we move easily into a familiar posture of knowing that we're always provided, of remembering our connection to source, to spirit. I've come to believe that the most productive and useful spiritual practice habits must include the study or the revisiting of stories, stories that remind us that there is that power for good in the universe greater than we are and that we can use it. That's what Ernest Holmes taught, but he wasn't the only one. Many others before and since then have reminded us of this same deep truth. Here in this community, CSL Greater Pittsburgh, and in communities like it, we share our stories. We talk about sharing our demonstrations, and we share these on demonstration Sundays. We share them in talks after the service, at lunchtime, and sometimes we write about them. I just shared on the CSL Greater Pittsburgh blog a story about a demonstration I experienced several years ago, traveling from Kansas City through Chicago and back to Pittsburgh in the midst of a ridiculous snowstorm that had shut down many airports and delayed many flights. The ability to rely on that power for good is important, and we remember it better when we engage in regular spiritual practice that includes remembering stories from ourselves and from others where this has indeed shown up for us. It's also a good practice to read the ancient stories. And some of my favorite ancient stories are from the biblical canon, which includes both the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian New Testament. And while traditional religions tend to teach these stories as history and biography, I see them more as great allegories that teach deep spiritual truths. They remind us that we're indeed never alone. And I've written and spoken about a number of these on my blog and on Sunday mornings, such as the story of Daniel, who was arrested and locked in a den overnight with a number of hungry lions. And the next morning, he emerged. When they rolled the gate back and unlocked the den, Daniel came out unscathed. About the story of three teenagers, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, whom the world primarily knows as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who were thrown into a superheated fiery furnace for refusing to worship a golden idol. And they walked out of that furnace unscathed, unburnt. And not only did they not suffer burns or perish, but the account says that not a hair on their head was singed and their clothes didn't even smell like smoke and fire. And then there's the story of the widow whose husband died and left her financially in a bad way with two young sons. They had so many debts that the creditors were threatening to take her sons into slavery to settle those debts. And she had but one jar of oil left in her house. Now, in those times, oil was something you used to help prepare food. It was also an asset that you could trade. So it was like money. The widow ran into a holy man, a prophet named Elijah. And Elijah counseled her to borrow as many empty vessels from her family, friends, and neighbors as she could. And when she had assembled a number of empty vessels, he instructed her to pour the one container of oil that she had into another container. And the miracle, of course, is that as she poured, she was able to fill from that one jar that she had all of those other jars. She was able to sell some of that oil and pay off the debts, save her sons from being sold into slavery. And the rest of the oil, of course, she kept, and it sustained her and her sons. And there are many, many more stories, both in ancient text and in our lives, in our everyday lives. And as we read and revisit these ancient stories, and as we listen and share our own stories in these communities, we develop what I call spiritual chops, or we strengthen our spiritual muscles. This truth that we are never alone or helpless, that we are always provided, is more concrete to us when we immerse ourselves in these shared stories. And so when we've built up our spiritual muscles, when we not only read the stories, but spend time and meditation on them, think about them, we don't hope that all is well when something comes our way that's not so great. We know it. We know that all is well. And we know that all is well because we have seen and we have heard over and over the stories from those who place their faith in that power for good in the universe and who know that they are always provided and always sustained. We know this on the deepest levels when we spend time, of course, in community, spend time in learning and study, and then anchor. This is so important. And when we spend time anchoring what we learn by reading and talking to others, by spending time in silence and solitude, practicing meditation, engaging in prayer and quiet contemplation. This is how I believe that we move from being spiritual seekers to spiritual warriors, from hoping to knowing. And it is knowing that allows us to remain calm in times of great stress, in times of deep turmoil, because we are assured, we know, we are grounded in the truth that there is a power and presence greater than we are. And so, as together we anticipate this holiday season, not only the return of the light, but the appearance in the heavens above of what is being called our Christmas star, I ask you, do you see what I see in the stories of ancient miracles and healings? Do you hear what I hear in the stories shared by friends and family here in this community? Can you know what I know? That there is a power for good in the universe greater than we are. When and if, or I should say, if and when we do know this, our lives will never be the same. And so it is.